everyone, to the last ClinEpi rounds and last rounds of any kind here this academic year. Glad we got a reasonable turnout. I was a little bit worried 5 minutes ago that Prakesh should be talking just to himself. So today we have welcome Dr. Prakesh Shah. He's Professor of Pediatrics at U of T and Mount Sinai Hospital. He has a long list of things that he's done here, places he's been, but I won't recite all those. I'm sure he can tell you about what's important. He's coming today to talk about a practice-based clinical research network and to reflect on national and international experience with that. And would you like questions as you go, or would you like to save them to the end?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Okay, so use your judgment.
What is IHPME?
What is it? It's the Institute of Health Policy Management and Evaluation
At the U of T. Well, thank you. Thanks, George, and thanks, Murray, for giving me this opportunity, because we have been talking about it and wanted to know what I do, really, when I don't come and teach here. So it may not be completely the ClinEpi talk that you might have here, or you might be used to listen, or I am used to listen when I sit there, but I think it will probably generate some interest that I'll drop in some flavors of clinical epidemiology. So idea is to learn why do we need to network in terms of the clinical research as well as the practice, to review how our network evolved and what does it do and what are its role, and how it became now a learning health system within the field of neonatology. At the same time, to understand what are the challenges while we go through that. So just to give you an example to set up the stage, a 31-year-old woman who is in her first pregnancy, which is progressing well. She suddenly goes into preterm labor at 25 weeks of gestation. The normal gestation is 40 weeks, just for the people who don't know. The baby is born at 700 grams at birth. It needs intensive life support in a specialized NCU. We're talking about this baby. You can see the hand of the adult by the side of the baby. Okay. So this is 700 grams, which in our field is a big baby. Because we are now dealing with 400s, which is a less than pound of butter that you see. And so what happened to this baby? Baby spent 4 months in the NICU, intensive care unit, needed support with his breathing for 3 months, needed nutrition support for 1.5 months, had 2 infections, a minor brain bleed, had 1 surgery to close one of the channels in the heart, and this is the baby at 3 years of age with a moderate learning disability. The important part is the total, just the neonatal hospitalization cost is 120,000. So with that, we needed to know that how can we do better? How can we do better with improving the outcome and reducing the cost at the same time? And that brought us together in 1995, 1996, Canada-wide, to see that what is happening across Canada. And this is our first paper published in PMAJ, which showed the variation in hospital mortality of this newborn babies, less than 32 weeks gestation. You can see the approved rate from 1% to 15%, just in 16 units in Canada. And when we published this paper, there was a public outcry, and everybody wanted to know who is M and who is N. And so the public letters went to the CMAJ saying that, tell us which hospital is M, so we don't go there, and tell us which is N, and so we don't go there. Kind of. So, and since then, for next 10 years, CMAJ did not publish our papers because we did not tell which was M and which was N. So that's how we were bound to regulations and stuff at that stage. But that made us thinking that.
Were those all regional centers, and were they all level 3?
These are all level 3 units.
All level 3, all regional centers. Okay.
All regional centers. So that led us to think that we need to work together. We need to get a group of people together so that we can work on a single aim or single outcome or single organized on a non-hierarchical fashion, so that we are all working with the commitment and trust of each other to improve the outcome of this thing. So we are a big country, but we're not that big country that we can have multiple units. And we all learned that there is very little you can achieve individually. You have to talk to each other. At the same, because there is so much of the tacit knowledge that once you talk and discuss between each other, that you can transfer, that you cannot transfer or implement just based on the research that is out in the literature. As well as you can recognize certain paradoxes, disincentives that is happening in the unit, within the unit. One unit has this much resource and another has this much resource, and why there are differences, and how can we learn so that we can come to a kind of common value. So idea was to build social capital, encourage and foster collective values, and design this network for evaluation. And we planned it in such a way that we want to convert data and be wise with the data, not just collect the data. That process, in this talk, I will take you from data to be towards wisdom. We are not totally wise yet, but towards wisdom and how we have done it as a network in our field. So this was established in 95, 96. We call it CNN. It was not existing that time, but we call it CNN. We still call it CNN. So we confuse people sometimes. But our mission was to be a network of Canadian researchers, or multidisciplinary researchers who conduct leading collaborative research dedicated to improve outcomes of the newborns, not in Canada, but worldwide. So to do that, we started with the home ground, and we started with the Canadian site. So currently there are 31 neonatal intensive care units in Canada. So there are only 31 sites who will care for this less than 32 weeks babies in Canada, and all 31 are part of this network. So everybody is part, everybody is contributing, everybody is learning from each other, starting from St. John's to Victoria. And what do? Our core activity is benchmarking and trend evaluation. We compare each other, we learn from each other, we talk to each other. But in the process of evolution in the last 20 years, we have been doing a lot of research, a lot of teaching, mentoring, quality improvement, health service evaluation, as well as international collaboration. Now, briefly touch each part of this activities that we do. One of the other activities that we have started in the last few years is advocacy. With this background and the platform, we are able to talk to every level of government ministry to conjure some of the resources that can be available to the parents during this process. So first, the benchmarking and evaluation. Our core is basically based on a database. So we have a customized data entry database that we developed ourselves and distributed to all the sites with a standard definition, standard protocol. We train people to collect. It is the responsibility of the site to organize the person and train them and collect the data. And that is uploaded to a web central server. One copy is retained in local hospital, so they can do whatever they want to do. And all the data collection is supported by individual hospitals. What we do is convert it into information. We benchmark on a common outcomes. We do our trend evaluation, and still we are anonymous. I'm fighting, and I'm last 5 hospitals left to make them agree that we should make this publicly available with the publicly displayed names of the hospitals. One of the common questions, we are not same. We are different. We have a hospital which cares for 100 babies, and we have a hospital which cares for more than 1,000 babies. So they're not exactly same, but we all care for similar type of babies. What we do is benchmark some of the outcome. One just example, this is nosocomial infection per 1,000 patient days. So sites know who they are, what is the national average, and what is their own data, what is their own infection rate. This is given to them every 6 months, plus they have a live portal that they can go and check anytime so that they can start implementing the function. But when we present it like this, everybody complains, oh, well, we have a bigger hospital, we have a surgical babies, and we have this babies, and we have smaller babies and stuff like that. So most of our reporting we do in a standardized ratio fashion. So for the public health, public clinical epidemiology people, this is on the y-axis is the standardized ratio of mortality or any major morbidity, and it is displayed as 1 being observed over expected is equal. Anything less than 1 is your observed rate is less than expected based on the characteristics of the population that you care for. And on the y and on the x-axis, the site displayed in a different role because of the size of the volume of the patient. If you have a larger patient, then you have you have more expected events on the x-axis. So that's why you are on the farther right. The two pink purple lines are the 99% confidence, 95% confidence limits. So as long as you are within that confidence limit, even if you are small, you're basically within that observed to over expected ratio. We display, we give in the table the 95% confidence around that point as well, so that people know that are they crossing completely out of range or they're still within range.
Sorry, I came a little later. You taking questions throughout or at the end?
Yeah.
If you could go back 2 slides for a moment. One more. If you're presenting these data, you're not linking the individual hospital to the letter that you've assigned to it in other graphs, because otherwise it would be easy, relatively easy to figure out hospitals 26 and 27 versus 1 and 2, because you could easily look up how many patients they treat. So you're doing this intentionally so that it's non-identifiable, even with your unique anonymized code.
Yeah. That's why it has been displayed with the different letters.
Okay.
In different types of graphs, so that one can be industrious enough to figure it out, but usually on the over, like looking at the broad way, you probably won't be able to figure it out. You have to go through 5, 6 such reports to figure it out, which is which, and we change it every year too. So
Nice.
And I want to change it, but at the same time, I have to respect the hospital who is submitting the data, because there are 4 or 5 hospitals that are still worried that people will take it wrong. Within our group, we know. And also the trend evaluation. So as you can see, this is the survival rate of the babies born at 22 weeks, 23 weeks, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. And you can see from 2010 to 17, we have a constant increase in survival at this gestational age. 22-week baby is 450 to 550 gram baby. And now we are reaching up to 60% survival for those babies. So that's a good number. So we publish this as an annual report. Our reports are available publicly with this coding kind of thing, but it is available for any unit, anybody, not within Canada, but internationally, to see and identify and learn from each other or learn from those reports as well. Plus, this database is completely available to anybody in Canada for research purposes. So they can just say that, oh, I want to look at this intervention versus this outcomes kind of thing. They just send one-liner as a question. If nobody is working on it, then they get that, okay, write your protocol. They write protocol, we work with them to improve the protocol, make it better, make it such that we can get something out of it, and then publish. So there is no way I can present all the research that we do here kind of thing, but this is our track record. I took over as a director in 2010, and that was my mission, that we need to use this data, convert this information into something that we can do with this information so that we can improve the outcomes of the data. You can see in 2019, we are not even halfway 2 years, and we have published 19 papers so far. So, and these are all done by the trainees. Most of them are led by trainees, supported by the senior staff. We give them idea and say, okay, go run with it, and then we produce. So type of research that you can do from the observational data such as this are prediction, something for the care provision as to is it associated or not associated with any of the outcomes that we're looking for, quality improvement, epidemiological, health services research, just to give you a flavor. Outcome based, I mean, we have always a problem because babies who are growth restricted or fetuses who are growth restricted, we have babies born at 30 weeks who are 450 grams. And we have babies born at 30 weeks, which normal weight is 1 kilo or 1.2 kilo. So this, we looked at that based on the sex to see that what is the survival probability. And we use the equal survival probability curves. So what you see on the x-axis is the gestational age in weeks. On the y-axis is the weight in grams, birth weight in grams. And the colored graphs are the probabilities of survival at individual gestational age and birth weight. So you match your baby's individual gestational age and birth weight, and you end up, let's say, at somewhere in this graph, then between purple and the yellow, then you can go back to purple and yellow highlight and say that this is a 50% chance of survival. This is just a right at birth. And what it showed us importantly is that it's not always good to be big. It's always good to be proportional. So the babies with a low birth weight also has equally lower chance of survival as baby with significantly higher birth weight at a given gestation age. And based on that, we also published a kind of prediction calculator. So based on certain characteristics, whether you are born at what gestational age, whether you are small for gestational age, boy, have a severity of illness, where were you born, did you receive antenatal steroid? Because if mothers receive antenatal steroid before baby is born, there is a higher likelihood of survival. And we created this probability survival where we can get the probability of what is the likelihood of no more survival, any minor morbidity, major morbidity, or moderate morbidity. For care provision related, probably this is one of our flagship papers. It's what it depicts is that the socioeconomic status. We link the socioeconomic status that the mother lives based on her postal code, and what is the outcome of the baby while baby is in the NICU. So baby is born, baby comes to the NICU, and baby goes out of NICU. During that period, we showed that it does not matter. Your socioeconomic status does not matter. That means we are providing care irrespective of where the mother is coming from or what socioeconomic status she has. Once the baby is out and goes into the environment of where mother is living, then it's a different story. But as far as baby is in the NICU, this confers our trust in our public health system that it works. That we do not look at where the patient comes from. We also learned over the time. Those of you who might have been the parents or know, as soon as baby is born, the first thing the doctors will do is to cut the cord. And we learned that that's not physiological. That's not how humans or animals were supposed to be born. When an animal is born, it's been left, and then slowly all the placenta will transfuse the blood to the baby, which is what baby needs. It is baby's blood, whereas we cut it and separate it out. So we learned that let's defer the cord clamping until the placenta is pulsating, or cord is pulsating. And we showed that improves the outcome. That improves mortality, and that reduces the brain hemorrhage in the baby. So they are less hypotensive, they don't need inotropes, they don't need blood transfusion, and they are better off. And this was you can see the sample size. This is a 4,000 baby study, and that shows that it is better. And that's now being practiced as a clinical practice, supported by some of the randomized control trials. In terms of epidemiological research, we track all the events that are happening, but just out of interest, over the 2003 to 8, we showed that the number of triplets in Canada is decreasing. Majority of triplets are based on IVF, in vitro fertilization. And we know that we have started doing only single embryo transfers, so that, or not single, maybe two at that time. So twins are reducing, twins are increasing, and triplets are decreasing. And same pattern we followed when the Quebec did the IVF free. We drastically demonstrated in our network that triplets vanished from Quebec for those 2 years. There were no triplets in Quebec. And that basically supported that, okay, well, something is working. We also do a lot of other epidemiological research in which this is the reference curve for the head circumference. When babies are born, we measure their height, weight, the length, weight, and the birth weight and the head circumference to see that are they proportional, not. So this is the largest database where we developed the reference curves for the head circumference that to be used for the public. In terms of health service evaluation, we did a lot of studies looking at these babies are dying, but when and how, what are the health service related factors that we can identify or pinpoint? And one of them was mortality was higher when the baby was admitted at the out of office hours. After 5 p.m. to next day 8 a.m., there was higher mortality. And based on that, a lot of reinforcement started to occur at the unit level. And now in the latest paper that we're finishing, we showed that there is no difference in mortality because people put the people who are supposed to be taking care of those babies, even at the night time. We are also asked by the government because this becomes kind of, it is not government funded database, but government resource. So they come and say, okay, well, where do I put my beds? In which provinces, how many beds are needed, what is the population, what is the number of babies born, what are the babies admitted to an ICU, and how many neonatologists we need, and how many level 2 or level 3 neonatal intensive care unit beds are needed. So those are the things that they ask. And we can provide those information on a regular basis. We do a lot of training and mentoring for the medical and non-medical students, masters, PhD, statistics. We started doing a lot of GIS work where we link the location of the maternal postal code with a certain abnormalities or certain anomalies that babies are being born with. Advocacy, as I mentioned, we just started incorporating. Currently, you might know that mothers do get maternity leave, but that maternity leave is 14 weeks of maternity leave and another 38 weeks of leave associated with the EI. So that's how you get 52 weeks of maternity or parental leave. What was happening when a baby was born at 22 weeks, our mothers will come, deliver the baby, 2 days later they are fine, they will go home and start working. So they want to take that maternity leave when the baby comes home. Whereas I need those mothers in my unit to work with the baby and to help baby and feed baby and breastfeeding and get the milk and stuff. So we fought with the government and we argued with them that this mothers we need to be here. So now they are eligible for parents of critically ill children ill until the baby goes home, and then their maternity leave starts. So they get that extra leave benefit, and that's based on our data showing them, look, this is what is happening, and not supplementing this babies properly or the way we should. I'll focus a little bit more time in the quality improvement because that's how we became this learning management system. So as you saw, we are different units. We are units which has a poor outcome, and we are units which has a higher outcome. And our idea is to bring the bottom guy up and not pull anybody down. And I hope to convince you by the end of the talk that that's what we have done. What we called it is called evidence-based practice identification and quality improvement. We call EPIC. In our program, we call it EPIC. And what it basically involves is promoting dialogue between the teams. We have 31 NICU. Why can't we talk to each other? Why can't we learn from each other? So we promote a lot of way of promoting dialogue, share and evaluate data. So when we sit in 31 in a unit, first 10 years, people were always, oh, I'm not going to say I am M or I am N. And now people say, I am N, I need help. Who is O? I want to go to your unit and know, how do you help? There's such a low infection rate. And that open people have worked with. So that's how we share our best practices and we share our intervention and the results. So I'll walk you through this journey. We did it in a 4, we are doing it in 5 phases. The 4 is still running. So first time what we did was, because in 2002, when we published that variation in mortality, it was still a randomized control trial only. That's it. Nothing else is evidence kind of era. So we had to do the first randomized control trial to show that quality improvement can be done through randomized control trial. So we did a cluster randomized trial. What we did was, before doing the trial, we invited who wants to participate. So we had 17 units at that time. 12 said, yes, we will participate, and 5 said, we don't have resources. So we said, okay, well, you are the reference. Don't do anything, continue what you're doing. We'll do work with this unit. And that's it. Lots of emails, lots of set objective, face-to-face meetings, site visits, presentations. We identified what are the best practices for that, but to prevent that particular outcome. And we established the system of tracking data and capturing and live feeding data back. So 6 NICU said we will work on infection. So they were tasked that you reduce infection in your unit. 6 NICUs were asked to reduce what we call chronic lung disease, which is the damage that happens when you ventilate the baby, and then the lungs get kind of not properly developed at that stage. And 5 units remaining as a control. So after 1 year, one had to fall off, but still 3,000 babies. And what we found was that in the group which was working for infection, reduced infection by 1/3. And in that same group of babies or group of the NICUs, the lungs also got better because infection also triggers that inflammatory response and increases the lung injury. So lung injury went down. And those who are working for lung injury reduced the lung injury without much change in the infection. And importantly, nothing happened in control group. There was no change in outcome in control group. So what we concluded that this is an effective way of reducing adverse outcome in the NICU. Because we talk each other, we learn from each other. If you target one outcome, you may get benefit in another outcome. And this probably is a cheaper way, because for doing this, we only needed $1 million to do this. Whereas if we would have targeted one hand hygiene, even randomized controlled trial, we would have used $2 million easily in the individual unit.
So if you could just clarify, what was the intervention? So one half of the interested NICUs were randomized to nosocomial infection prevention, one half to preventing the bronchopulmonary dysplasia. Those who were randomized to one or the other, they basically were told, discuss among yourselves what are the best practices and then implement them. And that was it?
No. So what we did was we got them together and said, discuss what is the best practice. Then a menu was created. That menu was given to individual units, because some units might be doing some of it and some contemplating, and some believe that no, we are not going to do this because we don't think this works. We said, that's fine. You choose what you want to do, but you have to do 3 quality improvement cycles every year. Any of your choice. And even if it is not in there, you choose your one and do one, but do 3 and come back. So you constant, and then come back and feedback to each other. Say, we did this, it turned out to be okay. But when we did this was fantastic. So we left it on to them to choose which intervention. So it's a kind of a bottoms-up approach. We didn't force everybody has to wash hand or everybody has to do this or something. And that has been the motto for the whole. So this helped us to prove that this is a scientific method. We were very happy. So we said, oh, that's fantastic. And then we said, well, now Canada is in a good trajectory. It should improve everywhere. So we said, we'll just watch. The sites which did not participate learned about the results and say, oh, give us, what did you do? So exactly same. We gave them the menu. We said, well, this is the menu. This is what people did. This is how you do the quality improvement, and go. So now 23, 11 new NICUs and 12 old NICUs. All were provided, but then no more reinforcement, because we were happy that, okay, well, we don't need to do anything. Let them do. 2 years passed. Nothing happened in the unit which were not immersively engaged as previously the first set of units. The units which immersively engaged continued to do better because they had a team. They know what to do. They know how to run the cycle, how to follow the data, how to monitor the data, and how to act on data. They continued to improve. So just getting what is in the paper or potentially better practices from the literature does not help. You have to get back. You have to work. And that basically put our hands in the sand and say, we need to do something. So that's where we say that you need a comprehensive initiative. So we launched the second EPIC, which was a 5-year. We targeted more NICUs. We could not do randomized trial now. So there was nothing. I mean, we could not. It was ethically not possible. So we said, well, we'll go for further more morbidities, involve everybody, and then go for it. So we went for furthermore. We developed a virtual research community. We reviewed everything in detail for those 5 morbidities, being there by brain hemorrhage, which is intraventricular hemorrhage, nosocomial infection, bronchopulmonary dysplasia, that's the lung, necrotizing enterocolitis, which is the gut condition, and retinopathy of prematurity, which is the eye condition that this baby suffered from. And a lot of workshops. Every 3 months, we continue to feedback. So the red is the national data. Green is your unit's data. If something is happening or you have implemented something and things are not going in the right direction, you know. So we continue to feedback them. And idea was to look at your data, review your practices, identify something, do PDSS cycle, look at your output, and continue to do those PDSS cycle over the next 5 years. Just to give you an example, a baby is born, and what we do is we give surfactant to improve their lung compliance, to help them breathe easily. So in this hospital, before the baby gets surfactant, there were 14 steps. Somebody has to look at the X-ray, somebody took a gas, this, where is the tube, all those things. And their pain was, because of that, babies were delayed getting surfactant, and they already incurred the ventilator-induced lung injury by that time. So they wanted to reduce it to less than half an hour to give surfactant. So we trained them, so they were sat down. Surfactant was coming from pharmacy budget. The people who are giving were the respiratory therapists. And the people who were signing were the neonatologists, the order was signed. So this is the delay. So we say, just talk it out. How can you work together and work that system so that baby gets surfactant at the time you want? And this was the thing. surfactant was given within the third step. You don't have to have those old ingrained practices that you have to follow. You just go with what is the right thing for the baby. So this time 25 hospitals participated from 2008 to 12. And what we found, what we showed is that we showed 37% reduction in odds of composite outcome of mortality and morbidity in the babies between 22 to 28 weeks. So that's a lot of babies that's saved without going. But what also, we also learned that the most of the improvement occurred in 26 to 28 weeks group and not the 22 to 25. And that may be because more and more smaller babies were surviving and they were living with some disability, some morbidity before they went home. And we also identified which morbidity it worked for and which morbidity it did not work. So the bronchopulmonary dysplasia or lung disease and the intraventricular hemorrhage are the ones that we're going to be our next target. We also followed this baby to look at the cohort as to what is the neurodevelopmental outcome. Because it's one thing to go out of the NICU and one thing to be a contributing citizen to the society. And it came out that our outcomes are as similar as international, if not better in some aspects. So at 24 weeks, around 30% of the babies do have major disability as a child when they grow bigger. So what we basically say that this is a generalizable, because we went from 12 units to 25 units and we're all together were able to improve the outcomes. If you target one may be improved. So with that, what was happening, this news was spreading and a lot of international sites were coming to our meetings. We meet regularly every year to go through this result. A lot of international sites were coming and then they said, oh, can we present our data sometime in your meeting? And we said, yes. And we were totally surprised to learn that units somewhere in the States came and said, we had no infection for 1,000 days in the NICU, 2.5 years. How is it possible? So we thought, if they can do it, why can't we go for driving towards zero? So we did not wait for the 2-year period that we wait between EPIC 1 and 2. We launched the EPIC 3 straight away, building on the success of the first and second effort and to sustain these efforts throughout the country. So this time we asked our sites, look, these are your data now. You target the 2 outcomes where you haven't made some improvement or you have worsened. You choose your target outcome, but with each outcome, each baby developing that outcome, we want you to do the review. So we wanted them to do a sentinel event review. Why did this baby develop this? Did the baby get this? Did the baby get this? And once you do 10 such babies data, then you realize that, oh yeah, we say we should be doing this, but 60% of our babies are not getting it. What is happening? And then identify where is the problem, identify improvement in the practices. We also forced to go to another unit and sit one day. Take 5 people, go to another unit and watch them, how they are practicing. You just say that I want to reduce my infection. I will link you with the hospital, which is similar to you, has a lower infection rate than yours. So you go there, sit there, talk to them, how they practice, what they do. So there were so many visits that happened with this, because many sites went to other sites. Hosts also benefited, as well as the visiting site benefited, because you may be doing something differently, your outcomes are good, but there is maybe another way of doing it better so that it can improve further. So self-selected outcomes, sentinel event reviews, groups were developed, and between site visits were encouraged. And then we had our annual meeting where they have to come. So every unit has to come in annual meeting and present in the last 1 year, what did they do? What target improvement they targeted, what are the interventions they did and how they did it, and what material they have developed so that other people don't have to develop the material they can take. So again, another 7,500 babies in the next 5. Again, we reduced the composite outcome further by 28%, or improved by 28%, with different successes and not everywhere successes. In some outcomes we were successful, in some not, and some in bigger babies and some in smaller babies. But what we showed is basically this is a sustainable model. We talk going from 2002 to 2018, 14, 15, 16 years of continuous learning from the quality improvement perspective. What it transcribed to, every 60 to 70 babies that we treated less than 28 weeks, we were able to have 2 less deaths, 3 less necrotizing enterocolitis, 4 less infections, and 7 to 8 more babies were going home without dying or having any morbidity. Now this whole last 2 and 3 came with a budget tag of $2.5 million, or 31 million.
So in the first page, you talked about how you got funding for EPIC 1, and now you just mentioned sort of $2.5 million for EPIC 2 and 3 combined. Where were you getting funding for this? Because you were not doing randomized trials anymore. And so who was funding you? Because, I mean, it's incredible data, and you've taken QI work on a big scale, whereas most of us who do any kind of QI work, one hospital, one unit, whatever, no funds, you know, on a shoestring budget. How did you do this?
Yeah. So so the first one was a randomized control trial, so that cluster randomized, but who got the funded. The second time we wrote it as a network grant. We said, well, look, this is the network we have developed, and we need some money for infrastructure of the network. No, we don't fund networks. We fund research, CIHR's response one. So we had to write it in a research formulated. This whole thing was basically change the wording from network to the research part and stuff. And then the next time we were funded. And funded for initially for 4 years, and then they basically, based on the results, they continued to fund until today. And then the last year, the money was going to run out. So last year, I'll tell you what I did to work out that mechanism as well, to extend it to the before birth. So we're now including maternal fetal medicine unit across the country, so that the baby comes out in a better shape, so that I don't have to work hard and the baby's outcomes better. And it's called Canadian Preterm Birth Network, where we basically mothers, babies, and the follow-up developmental pediatrician and parents. So the 4 group went together to ask for the money. And then we got the $4.5 million till 22. We'll see. So, but whenever I present this, it's like epochs and trends and one versus another. Are this correct method to evaluate basically a non-randomized intervention? So what we have done is we basically evaluated this as a quality improvement, which is a control chart method, to look at that. Are there any spatial cause variations? So you can see at the bottom, it's a 23 to 25 weeks, 26 to 28, 29 to 30, and 31 to 32. So there are 4 bombs, and all of them are showing spatial cause variation, meaning thereby there are 7 to 8 points on the one side of the graph, or there is a single point outside of the upper and lower confidence limit, which is 3 standard deviations away from the mean. So from quality improvement perspective, we are able to satisfy those criteria as well, that this is a proper evaluation. And you can see for every outcome, it is going in the right direction, as well as every good practice going into the right direction as well. We also asked that, okay, well, but which one worked? Is it EPIC 1, EPIC 2, EPIC 3? So we did an interrupted time series analysis to see that is there any difference in improvement in outcome between 3 different approaches, and we found that there is nothing. Every one is better, but not one is better. One interrupted time is better than another interrupted time in the scope of improvement. So it basically tells us that everything is working, and it is scientifically working. Overall, we have been able to reduce every morbidity in the babies in the magnitude of 20 to 40% over the 14-year period. And this is always a difficult sell at the unit level as well, because there has to be some unit participation as well. With $2.5 million doesn't do 31 unit, doesn't get anything kind of thing. So people started to go back to their unit and asking for resources, and the administrator started to think, why? What is EPIC? Why? So now in our meeting, we have 10 to 12 administrators coming to see what the hell are you doing? Because it's different. Quality assurance and quality improvement is different. In quality assurance, you want to close that unit. Basically, you want to close these hospitals which are not performing well. That's your quality assurance. Whereas quality improvement, you want to reduce the variability, and you want to improve towards the better side. And that's the idea. And that is what we have achieved. in our network. As you can see now, all of us are within that 95% confidence level, whereas previously we were all over. There were 3 hospitals which were above and 3 hospitals below. Now we all talk and we all go and learn from each other so that everybody is getting better and everybody is getting in the narrow band of the spectrum of the outcome evaluation. So our hope is that over time, which is embraced by each hospital as seriously as we have asked them to embrace, so that there is a next to the CEO's room, there is an improvement room. We basically, when we finished 3, we immediately launched 4, but what we now went into the era of generating evidence. We were following the evidence, we were implementing the evidence, but now we want to generate evidence. And how are we going to do that? Is by doing some comparative effectiveness research projects. So the practice-based research networks are the fully grown fertile soil for doing this kind of research. But we still have approaches where we don't agree. Same literature we read, half of the units say, no, we are going to do this way, and half of the units say we are going to do this way. And we want to leverage this infrastructure that we have and say, can you consistently do that way for next 2 years? And can you consistently do whatever you want to decide that way? So that at the end of the 2 years, we can compare 2 of you without giving money for any randomized trial. The data is already collected. Just need a little bit of more simple data to be collected. And this is how I think oncology did it in 70s and 80s. Protocol A versus protocol B. Retire A, B versus C. And that's what we want to do. Have the element of trial, incorporate the practicality of doing it under the leverage of the data collection. And that's how we have started. So we'll be launching our first CER July 1st of comparing how to support babies after extubation. That is going to be launched. The question came back, well, but is this the process just happened because there is improvement in the care generally we provide to everybody? I mean, how can you say this is not just improvement of care and what you did resulted into it? So when we were doing this in 2010 or so, we started learning a lot about other countries publishing their data. So Japan was publishing, oh, we saved this 270 gram or 280 gram, you probably might have heard in the news. So we looked at that data and we said, well, whatever is presented here, there is something, why don't we get together? So I got in touch with the 11 such networks across the world where there is a national database of neonatology. And I said, well, can you guys get together and can we work out a system where we can compare each other? Because you do this way, we do this way, let's see what our outcomes are. So currently from 2012, I was able to secure some funding from the CIHR to do this. 11 countries are sending their data on babies less than 29 weeks to us to say, okay, well, let's compare each other. So we're getting data from Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Sweden, UK, Switzerland, Israel, Japan, I said, and Spain. So there are 11 countries which are sending us the data. And idea was everybody was thinking that they are the best. Okay, before this started, everybody, oh, our outcomes are the best. And in Canada, we know that we were not best. And this is what happened over the years. So this is 2007 to 15. The red line is Canada. We were the second worst in these 11 countries. And that was the reason I got the funding from CIHR. So we saw that, look, we are the worst. We need to improve. So they gave us the money. And because our data was converted into community collaboration and knowledge, we were able to reduce our outcome. Whereas other countries either static or worsen. Like these are big countries in Australia, New Zealand, Israel, Japan, Sweden, Switzerland, Spain, UK, Finland, and Tuscany in Italy. And only one country which has remained low is the lower graph. This is more composite adverse outcome in Switzerland. But in Switzerland, until 2015, they were not resuscitating babies less than 24 weeks. If you don't resuscitate, your outcome is going to be better because if you don't count them, you don't account them. So this concept has been spread. So we have been teaching in multiple countries. Currently, as you saw, Canadian, but Sweden 11 because they came, they saw our results, they saw our improvement, and they said, "How are you doing it?" They learned and they went back and they have established a similar program. So we are teaching them. Sweden, 24 units in China, Malaysia, Australia, New Zealand, and Latino countries, 24 units. So we are teaching them and we are learning. We are talking to them and they are learning from us as to how to do this. So they now come to our meeting. So this is just fresh results from China. They introduce, they are doing the first randomized control trial for infection. And their infection is going down in their hospital. Now in China, this reduction is a huge number, as you all probably know. So what I probably have convinced you that we are not just limited to data, we're converted to community, collaboration, knowledge, and trying to become wiser and wiser. And for us, future is not the next exit, it's just right there. So how did we do this and what are the successes and challenges in communication? Talking. We talk to each other every month. We talk to the group every month. We are all on a speed dial. I have this baby, what are the suggestions and stuff like that. We defined our purpose as well as the providing them the knowledge and empowerment. Everybody has access to this data. They can write a simple one-line question. Nobody's doing it. Anybody can do it. And they can follow or they can mentor their trainees kind of thing. We have come off power differential, and that happened internationally too. All the international network directors also sat in one room and say, okay, let's figure it out. Let's work it together. When they saw the first data, which showed that mortality is higher in one country and lower in another country, how? What are you doing that we want to learn kind of thing? And we kind of develop a small database that everybody is collecting and stuff by talking and allowing them the power that, okay, well, you are in charge. Yes, you're sending me data, but you can have your data anytime and we can feedback your report anytime. So involving, engaging, and always money is a challenge, but we have been successful. We yet have not charged any unit anything, but it is coming because you can't sustain this for a long period of time. So it will come, but I think we have secured funding until 2023. So we'll keep on working and finding money. Plus, the comparative effectiveness research is a hot uptake at the CIHR2. In the first week we are launching, I got the project funding of $500,000 to do it because CIHR saw that as a very nice way of comparing to intervention without spending $3.5 million that you would need otherwise to do a randomized. So integrate research within this clinical system and a learning system. Everybody, now so many meetings happens between units that I even not aware of. Because they now know each other, they just call each other and learn from each other and talk to each other. So what happened in the neonatal care is that we are only 50 years old fraternity. Initially we started ventilating the baby, so we are now ventilator, okay, we can save the baby. Then we had a steroid given to the mother that helped the babies. We have surfactant, that improved the lung compliance, big improvement. Nitric oxide and ECMO, that also helped. Since 2000, there is not a single new molecule that has been surfaced in neonatology. It's what we have learned is that how can we do what we do better and how can we do what we do consistently in a better way. And that's a quality improvement. And that has led to significant improvement in the outcome. So I constantly say that, look, this is changing. We were not talking about 22 weekers 4 years ago, not talking about 23 weekers 10 years ago. But this year we resuscitated 9 22-weeker babies at Sinai. 4 of them went home. So this is the better mortality rate or survival rate than if I had a severe MI right now. So there are a lot of networks. And if you don't network, you probably will not improve alone because there's nothing you could do alone. Then I would like to acknowledge a lot of people. I just keep on giving lectures. A lot of people work in the background at individual unit level, individual hospital level, a lot of trainers, a lot of group leads that work on it. And this is the research center that I lead with the SHU lead. And where we house the central coordinating center and the central data at Sinai. So I hope I have been able to convince you that we have converted data into some form of wisdom, not fully wise yet. And we are now this and not pulling or pushing each other. We're all looking up. Happy to answer any questions.
A super inspiring story. I guess my question is about sustainability. You know, it sounds like you've got very bright, passionate people who are writing grants and, you know, motivated by. But what happens when those people retire, move away, take an administrative job? You know, how can you bake something like this into the institution so that it doesn't go away?
Yeah. So what we have been trying at the institutional level or the foundation level to garner some support for the local, because locally there has to be somebody collecting data, and that is the hospital's responsibility. We don't take any responsibility for that. And everybody has found a different way of finding. Some have gone to foundation, some have gone to the practice plan, and some places neonatologists are paying from their own pocket for that person because the goods that they get out of the device. But that's not kind of constantly sustainable model, because at some stage it will break. Kind of thing. So what we have tried to argue with the government and lobby with the government with this information and presenting and stuff like that. Our struggle is health is still a provincial mandate. So central government doesn't want to own it and say, okay, well, this is my baby now. Canadian Neonatal Network is run by government and nobody can touch it, and this is what the constant funding or something that is not happening. Talks are underway. And other options that we have discussed at a group is to tackle it from multiple sources. So keep on writing some funding, like a funding grants and stuff, so you can put some money for the coordinating center all the time in each grant. At the same time, we'll have to go to the hospital and say, you will have to pay $10,000, $20,000 every year if you want to be the part of it. The number will go down initially, but then it will come back, because now all hospital wants to benchmark. If I go and tell them my infection is low, it's about compared to what. And that's where it's the buying in has happened at the hospital levels, 100%. Foundation, some foundation we have penetrated, some not. But once it comes as an owner thing, the owner request saying that if you don't pay $20,000, you won't be part of the network. Probably that's where it will start triggering the response at the provincial level and say, okay, because every province has some kind of surveillance system. This is, in a way, it is a surveillance system for outcomes of the newborn baby. So,
do you have ethicists involved in your programs?
So at the time when we initiate any new protocol, so we do a lot of subsidiary research projects within this. So if you want to add something like how and why the babies are dying, so we had a 2-year project, so that was led by that. So every hospital has to run through this their ethics board, as well as internationally, and many times I have to talk to them to convince, but not direct involvement.
I mean, I'm sure you can guess where this question is going. There is a point that any experienced physician learns at which death is a highly desirable outcome. So how do you deal with that at the lower end? And you're giving the impression of constantly investing in mortality as the principal outcome. And so if we just had better technology and if we did better with everything, we could manage the 250-gram babies. And how about the 100-gram babies? Yeah. I mean, I'm being ridiculous, but yeah. How do you deal with it?
Yeah. So we as a network facilitate the discussion only, but at a local level, people will have to work within their constraints, resources, and the availability of personnel. So we do not tell them that you should go for a 400-grammer or you should go for a 300-grammer. What we feedback is this is the outcome of a 400-grammer who was treated in Canada in 2017, 18, 19, 20. So people who are sitting on the fence or sitting at the side of debating whether it is worth going for this baby or not, we feed them the data as to the outcome short-term as well as neurodevelopmental outcome of the babies for them to make an educated decision for themselves. We are not making decisions for anybody. If our Canadian Pediatric Society wants to create a guideline, they come to us and we provide them the data nothing else. We do not provide any qualifier that you should do or should not do. Is that answer? Yeah, because it has to be an individual. It has to be an individual baby level, an individual practitioner level question, or the hospital level question.
This is wonderful. I work in a whole different area. I'm an adult neuromuscular physician. A few years ago, when I was still a fellow, there was an attempt to do a Canadian neuromuscular network, and it failed. And some of the reasons were getting data locally, so it was hard to get people invested into putting the data. And I think maybe the initial database was too complex, and that makes it harder.
Yeah.
And the other thing that shocked me, maybe is too young and naive, but it was that some people did not want to share the data. So you have people with big centers saying, well, I see 1,000 patients with this rare disease. Why would I share all my data when you're giving 10 patients or you're contributing with 50 or 100? How do you overcome those barriers? Because for me, it's so obvious that, especially with rare diseases, that's what I do. For me, obviously, the power in numbers, and I'm training clinical epidemiology. I want to have bigger numbers. I want to collaborate, but it's hard to convince people of the value.
Yeah. So that has been happening because based on our experience, a lot of other people have come and say, okay, we are establishing something. Can you come and tell us? We started bottoms up. We started with a small database, and then gradually people came and say, so if I have a data saying that, well, this many babies had immediate cord clamping and this many had a deferred cord clamping. How much deferred? Well, if you want how much deferred, I have to add the data point. That when was the cord ligand? So that's how we grew slowly. So we started with a small database that people can manage. You will not get 100% from the start. So you saw we were 16 from the start. At that time, there were 24 units, but only 16 said we want to participate. Others said no. But if you build it, they will come.
So on note, how big is your data set? Like how many fields do you have? And how long does it take for an abstractor to actually get at that information? And the third part of that is, what's your core minimum amount of money that you need to have the worker bees running around getting data per person? Because like that's the core. Like we've got things like other networks where there are these worker bees that roam around and abstract stuff from everywhere. And it should really be part of our constant continuous quality improvement in our hospitals. But no department will put it as a line item that shows up in your cost centers, right? So what's your bare minimum that you have to do to get all this to happen?
Yeah. So the first question, how big is our database? So database has grown to a stage that now if I want to add any item, I have to take out one item. So that's a requirement.
But 200 items you're collecting?
This is an intensive daily data. So I get data on every day, any baby in Canada who is ventilated or not ventilated.
But the actual number of fields in the database.
So total number of fields in database is 250. Okay. But individual item can go up to 400 kind of thing. But some babies may not have it, and some babies may have it. So that's the first part. How long does it take? So that is always a constant question because new site wants to join and they want to see. So there are short stays and there are long stays. Yeah. So on average, it is 4 hours per baby. Okay. So it takes 4 hours per baby. So depending on the size of the hospital, the number of personnel we have. So at Sinai, we have more than 1,100 admissions. So I have one person full time who basically collects the data. And I supported that person with some summer students in the summer so that we are live. So every day she comes, looks at what is the baby, tick, 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 done. So we are live kind of thing. Whereas other places, baby goes home and then it is retrospectively abstracted from the child. So when retrospectively abstracted, on average, small stay, large stay is 4 hours. Okay. So smaller hospital needs 0.5. Majority of time, they have hired basically nurses who want to go part-time. And they want to come in the night to do the data collection, which is fine. And I am constant direct. So one of the main things that we have said to them, I meet with them every month, three every year, face to face, and 3 teleconferences. And they have my number. So basically, anything they are doubtful, just send an email, and I'll tell you what to enter, rather than you deciphering what to enter. And that gives some credential to the database. So hospitals are spending between $25,000 to $45,000 for abstraction plus benefits.
That's chump change. Yeah.
Plus, they have their own local database now ready. So they can do even their own research, their own monitoring, whatever they want, they can do with that as well. So they can have it for 15 years, and then they can. Most of the sites, they do their own data, like research locally. When they do locally and they come across something and they call me and I say, well, why don't you do it national? You will have 10 times, 20 times more sample. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's just after 2, so I'm going to call proceedings to a halt and thank our speaker again. That was wonderful.
Thank you.